connection. It's having some internet issues this week. So, looks like it's done and it is connected. So, very good. Welcome in. Let me just get the view right here and we will be good to go here. All right, welcome in. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in those of you that are joining in on Zoom. And welcome to all of you that are looking in either on Facebook Live later in the week or month on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. You have found Unity Prosperity Ocean International. So to all of you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it may be in your neck of the woods. I'm Reverend Dr. Stephen J. Kosmina, and my sidekick is catching up on a little bit of much needed rest. As you know, I ordained her a prayer minister, and she was really busy yesterday with some of the concerns that we have going on in the world out there with another event in Texas. So let's hold all those people up in prayer that went through that experience that no one should ever have to go through. So just a moment to acknowledge the presence of God moving in and through all people with love and light and peace. So with that in mind, I will share today's daily word. And today's daily word for Sunday, May 7th is free. Free. And the affirmation is, I am one with the freeing, guiding force of God. I am one with the freeing, guiding force of God. Allow these words to be the meditation of your heart. When I think of freedom, I imagine a bird in flight, soaring above the earth. As the bird glides, it seems to effortlessly move through the air. Then it flaps its wings, moving upward and forward against the force of gravity. Likewise, I open my mind and heart and feel the freeing force of God within. This force is powerful and peaceful, and I give myself over to it. As I do, I overcome stifling feelings of stress or doubt. I trust in God, and I move forward and upward with renewed purpose and confidence. Just as a bird overcomes gravity to fly with purpose, I overcome the challenges and circumstances of my life to find my purpose and live from my divine nature. I am free. And from Paul's letter to the Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 6. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? So let's jump right in, and then we will visit after we come off of social media. Let me just check my sound on social media and make sure that I'm coming through loud and clear, since I don't have my assistant here with me today. Looks like I'm there. Okay, very good. I don't sound, as long as I don't sound like social media, like Darth Vader or robot or artificial intelligence or something like that, it's all good. So we've been going through a deep dive, a look into the words that we find from Jesus, our master teacher and way shower, that we find in John 10:10. I have come so that you may have life and have it more abundantly. I want to ask if any of you looking in, and you can put in the chat or you can look and raise your hand out there. I always look for inspiring stories, and I may have brought up this name in the past, but have you ever heard of Bethany Hamilton, or do you remember me talking about Bethany Hamilton? Bethany Hamilton, uh, well, she was a 13-year-old incoming surfing champ, who at October 31st, 2003, went out on the waves one beautiful Saturday morning. But while she was lying on her board, kind of waiting for the next wave, her arm was hanging casually in the water, waiting for the next wave. And while she was laying there on the board with her hand dangling, a 14-foot tiger shark bit once and then disappeared, taking off her left arm just below the shoulder. Now, in one of the final interviews, well, really one of the first interviews after the attack, she told the Associated Press that she would surf again despite her loss. Less than a month later, on Thanksgiving Day, she returned to the water, and just 10 weeks later, in January of 2004, she returned to surfing competition. She was very young at this time. Now, she's also written a book entitled Soul Surfer, in which she chronicles her experiences through all this and what was going on in her mind and what was she feeling and all of that. She's chosen to use her experience to become an inspiration and to help others to overcome adversity, no matter how great. She writes, some of her words are, she says, people I don't even know come up to me. I guess they see me as a symbol of courage and inspiration. One thing hasn't changed, she says, and that's how I feel when I'm riding a wave. It's like, here I am. I'm still here. It's still me and my board in God's ocean. It's still me and my board in God's ocean. That's how I feel when I walk outside and go look at the Gulf of Mexico. I just love it. But what a great line. It's still me and my board in God's ocean. I think it's a great line. And that's our line for this morning as we catch our wave to the abundant life. Again, this theme over the last few weeks comes from our master teacher and way shower, Jesus, who said, I have come so that ye might have life and have it more abundantly. And Ernest Holmes says, and so we prepare not to die, but to live. So how many of you out there, and you can put it in the chat, and it doesn't matter if you're watching the recording of this, I go back and look at all the comments and I get notified about all the comments. How many of you know how to surf? And I'm not talking about the internet. I'm talking about how to surf on a wave. You know, most people don't know how. I don't know how. I've only, closest I came to surfboard is I walked by a surfboard in a store one time. But you have to learn the process. So today, with young Bethany Hamilton as our role model, we're going to look at the idea of surfing as a metaphor for living the abundant life. And just like most of us don't know how to surf, there's a lot of us that don't really know how to be abundant in every area of our lives either. We all have to learn. That's why we're here. We have to learn. That's why we should study, invest in classes, invest our time in classes, and participate on Sundays and take in the spiritual nourishment and seek greater knowledge and understanding. 4 ideas that we're going to look at today that will really serve us today, that we're going to take from this correlation, this looking at surfing and the inspiration of Bethany Hamilton. Here's 4 ideas we're going to look at. When you surf, you want to point your surfboard toward the shore. That'd be a good idea, right? You want to start paddling. Hold on one second, get somebody coming in. You want to start paddling. You want to practice catching the waves that come along, and you want to be willing to jump on that wave and take the risk. So let's take a look at all these this morning. Pointing your surfboard toward the shore. What can that mean for us in our lives? In other words, what we want to do is we want to get into position. You want to know where you're going. And Tanae and I teach this in all of our classes, all of our coaching and consulting that we do, whether it's with individuals or with corporations. What's the end game, right? What is the identified desire, objective, the dream, the aspiration, the goal that you're moving towards, that you desire? Getting it right. Know where you're going. What does the abundant life mean to you? What does it mean to you? I mean, truly mean to you. Take time to reflect. Get a mental equivalent of what that looks like. Mental equivalent. We want to hold that vision. Ernest Holmes tells us to spend time seeing that which we wish to experience. He says, here's his words. He says, if day by day we have a greater understanding and a clearer concept, if daily we are realizing more of truth and applying it in our actions, then we are on the right path. It is a wonderful experiment and a great adventure to make conscious use of the law, to feel that we can plant an idea in mind and see it gradually take form. The student should take time every day to see his or her life as he or she wishes it to be, to make a mental picture of his or her ideal. He should pass this picture over to the law and then go about his or her business with a calm assurance that on the inner side of life, something is taking place. End quote. So before the wave comes, right? Before the wave comes, we need to be in position. That also means, this also means, I should say, that we must learn what we need to learn now, this eternal moment of right now. We have to release what we need to release now. That's doing that search and find, that seek and find, that identification of that which doesn't serve us, the old habits of thought, the old habits of words, the old habits of and behaviors of action. And we have to identify, hey, this is not supportive of the ideal I've built in my vision that I'm holding using the power of my imagination. So I'm going to release those things. But we want to move something in place. And that's where our affirmations come in. So before the opportunity comes, we want to do this. And we want to do this so we can see the opportunities that might be right in front of us and have been perhaps in front of us all along. In fact, we get into position so that the opportunity can move into our field of vision from the infinite sea of possibilities, and we can be open to receive them, allowing them to dock, so to speak, in our consciousness. Now, there's an interesting story about this, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We want to get in position by opening up to a greater and greater and even greater possibilities for our lives. We want to look for them. We want to move into that state of expectancy. And you know, we sometimes we say, well, why do some people get all the opportunities, lots of opportunities for greater abundance, and some don't? And sometimes it's simply because some are looking for them and others cannot even see them, and they might be right there. In Lawrence Blair's book, a book titled Rhythms of Vision, The Changing Patterns of Belief, and also a story told in the movie, What the Bleep, Blair refers to an accounting of Magellan's first landing in Tierra del Fuego. He says the explorers were met by the native people isolated for centuries by their canoe culture. Now, though the large hulking ships were in full view of the harbor, the native people were not able to see them. The idea of ships was so far beyond their experience that the physical ships were actually invisible to them. And it wasn't until the wise shaman within that culture, within that group, the wise shaman realizing that the newcomers have to have arrived in something, in some way, he pondered and he divined the matter until he was able at last to see the ships. The shaman then brought it to the attention of the villagers that the strangers had arrived in something which, although preposterous beyond belief, could actually be seen if one looked very carefully with gestures and drawings and words. He patiently described the ships in the bay again and again until the entire tribe could see them. The Fuegians, lacking experience, familiarity, or a history of ships, had no frame of reference, no context to see the sailing vessels anchored right before their eyes until they could understand it, have it discovered, and then interpreted to them by their shaman. They were not able to conceive it visually. Ernest Holmes wrote, could we see the mentality of a successful person? Could we see it? We should find the imprint of success written in bold letters across the doorway of his or her consciousness. This person is sure of himself or herself, sure of what he or she is doing, certain of the outcome of his or her undertakings. As much gathers more, as like attracts like, so success breeds greater success, and conviction is attended by certainty. The whole teaching of Jesus is to have faith and to believe. Success breeds greater success. It does. That's why we want to hang around with successful people. I was just telling someone this morning to use caution because consciousness is contagious. So use your prayer and reflection time to build the mental acceptance of your abundant life. You have to be able to see it, to use the spiritual power of your imagination and see it. When you believe it, you'll see it. All right. Let's keep going with these frames of reference. Start paddling, right? If we're out on the board, we're getting in position, we want to start paddling. You're in position, you're facing the right direction, you've built up your mental acceptance of your abundance. Now what? Start paddling. Former NBA center and coach Johnny Kerr said his biggest test as a coach came when he coached the then expanding team, the Chicago Bulls, and his biggest player was only 6'8", Erwin Mueller. Not real big in basketball team terms. He says, and I'm quoting, he said, we had lost 7 in a row, and I decided to give a psychological pep talk before a game with the Celtics. He said, I told Bob Boozer to go out and pretend he was the best scorer in basketball. I told Jerry Sloan to pretend he was the best defensive guard. I told Guy Rogers to pretend he could run an offense better than any other guard out there. And I told Erwin Mueller to pretend he was the biggest, best rebounding, shot blocking, scoring center in the game. Well, we lost the game by 17 points. I was pacing around the locker room afterward, trying to figure out what to say now, when Mueller walked up, put his arm around me and said, don't worry about it, coach, just pretend we won. So do you build momentum before the wave or after? You want to build the momentum before you need it. Start paddling to get your momentum up. Take some action. Build some momentum. Start paddling. Do something. Take action. Take that step. Then practice catching the waves. All right, number 3, moving right along. Practice catching the waves that come along. There is more than one opportunity in life. Just practice catching some. This isn't about chasing every shiny object to come along, but recognize the opportunities that come along that are supportive to the vision that you have built out in your mind that's in alignment with the life you would love to live. Once you build your momentum, any wave is an opportunity for you. How many have heard that the saying opportunity only comes once? How many have you seen? How many of you have seen 2 or more opportunities in your lives? How many have seen more? I mean, over and over and over and over again, right? But maybe, just maybe, you are perhaps waiting for the big wave. You have to build your momentum so you are ready for any opportunity. There are people who are waiting for only what they perceive as the big one. But the process is that once you have built your momentum, any wave is an opportunity for you. You're awake and aware to grab that. I'm going to seize that opportunity. Often, like a snowball rolling down the hill, it's those opportunities that first look like small ones that quickly move from a little ripple to a wave, to a tsunami of good, of abundance. And so often we don't recognize these things. That's, I often talk about where, we're thinking we got this all mapped out, right? We're getting a little momentum, we're zigging, and divine order says, no, we're going to zag here. And through that doorway of that zag that we did not foresee, we go through it, and we did our prayer work, we did our meditation work, we listened, we got that guidance, listened to the intuition, and we moved through that door. And it's like, oh my, you did have a better plan, right? No such thing as a mistake, right? But we're ready to jump on those opportunities. Ralph Waldo Emerson, often considered the father of New Thought, once said, our greatest glory isn't in never failing, but in rising up every time we fail. In her book, Building Your Field of Dreams, Mary Mannon Morrissey wrote, if you know in your heart of hearts that you have done everything possible to succeed, and what you have set your heart upon does not come to pass, then you can trust that something better is trying to happen. God's will is for our greatest good. Sometimes we fail because we have not been diligent enough, persistent enough, or willing enough to do what is required. Other times we have truly done all that can be done and we still fail. Then our challenge is not to stare longingly at a door that is bolted shut, but to find the open window where a guiding light beckons. You have to lean into the new dream, even if you can barely glimpse its outline from where you stand. Move toward the light and lean toward the good. If you become bitter, your capacity to see future opportunities dies with your failed dream. When you stay feeling sorry for yourself, you cannot grow. End quote. Mary Morrissey. All right, number 4 and final one. It is worth the risk. Is there any risk in surfing? Sure, you could break a leg. Is there any risk of just lying on the board with your arm dangling in the water? Yes, Bethany Hamilton certainly would say yes to that. Yes, there is a risk in surfing, but the biggest risk is when you do nothing. The biggest risk is when you do nothing. Can you hear that? Do I need to say it again? The biggest risk is when you do nothing. This is where trust comes in a big, big way. if we look to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 11 and 12, it tells us, do not be anxious how or what you are to answer or what you are to say, for the Holy Spirit will teach you in that very hour what you ought to say. And I would take that further, what to say, what to think, what to do. Here's a good way to understand and remember what trust is. It's an acronym. T is for totally, R is for rely, U is for upon, S is for simple, T is for truth. Truth. Totally rely upon simple truth. So trust means we must totally rely on the simple truth that God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good. 24/7, not just sometime. So let's wrap this up for today. Point your surfboard toward the shore and get in position. Get in position. Start paddling. You have to build your momentum so that you are ready for the opportunity. 3, catch the waves. There is more than one opportunity in life. Just practice catching some. Once you build your momentum, any wave is an opportunity for you. You know, these really line up for me with our fifth unity principle. Through thoughts, words, and actions, we live the truth we know. Live this truth. And number 4, know that there is risk. Yes, but the biggest risk is when you do nothing. People come to me all the time. Well, is there a cost to take classes? There's a cost to work with you. Is there a cost to this? Well, yeah, but don't make your decision on that. What is the cost of doing nothing to live your life? What is the cost physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to never live the life you're called to live, to never step through that doorway into your dream? In the foreword to her book, I'm going to end with this. Her book, Soul Surfer, Bethany Hamilton writes, in the end, I'm really proud of what we've written here. I think it's truthful, and I hope it inspires and motivates people to tackle any obstacles in their lives. I hope it helps people find faith in God and in their own strength and ability. I hope it motivates someone going through a tough time right now to keep on fighting until they rise above it. You can and will get through it. I'm living proof that where there's a will, there's a way. What I don't want is for people to pity me or think of me as a perfect person who has had her life ruined. That's not how I see it. My mom is always saying, if life hands you lemons, make lemonade, which is a great outlook on life if you can actually see beyond the lemons when you're up to your eyeballs in them. My strength came from my relationship with God and from the love and encouragement of my family and friends. Excuse me. In a lot of ways, I'm like any 14-year-old girl, and in a lot of ways, I'm not. I don't pretend to have all the answers to why bad things happen to good people, but I do know that God knows all those answers. I also know that I want to use what happened to me as an opportunity to tell people that God is worthy of our trust and to show them that you can go on and do wonderful things in spite of terrible events that happen. She continues, I don't think it does any good to sit around feeling sorry for yourself. I made myself a promise. I'm not going to wallow or walk around moaning, woe is me. One other thing you should know, this book really doesn't have an ending yet because I'm still learning how to cope every day. And I'm not talking about learning how to button my top with one hand. I'm talking about coping with being a celebrity or coping with people's stares, either because they recognize me or because they are not too used to seeing a person with one arm running down the beach, or coping with answering endless questions from the media and seeing my face in newspapers and magazines. I'm also learning to cope with the frustration of knowing that if I had both arms to paddle, I just might have done a little better in a surf contest that I've just been in. I'm excited about some of the opportunities to travel and surf all over the world that have come as a result of my attack and return to surfing. But most of all, I am excited about what the future holds. Will I make it to the pro ranks in surfing? Will my lifelong friend and surf buddy, Elena, be paddling next to me in the years to come as she is now and was during the attack? Will I be able to make a difference in some small way in people's lives by sharing my story? What does God have in store for me? I really don't know, but I do know one thing for sure: the adventure is only started. End quote. So, to all of you, catch your wave. Catch your wave, my friends. Open up to recognizing opportunity. Catch your wave, because the adventure to the abundant life, which Jesus promised, has only started. God bless you. Hang on, I got to hit the cough button. Excuse me, that's part of speaking. You have that cough, you got to suppress it as long as you can. Sorry about that. Hey, I want to thank you all for looking in. Just invite you to just take a moment. Just take a moment. Close your outer eyes if it's safe to do so. Just take a deep breath into this eternal moment of right now, acknowledging it, acknowledging the holy sacred presence of God right here, right now, in you, as you, through you. Knowing that, remember, wherever you're standing on holy ground. Acknowledging the holy sacred presence of God and taking in this message here today, simply pray. Spirit, speak to me in ways I cannot possibly ignore. So I see the opportunities you bring my way. Lead me, guide me through the open doors so I may live as Jesus promised, as Jesus told us, more abundant life, the abundantly blessed life, by seeking first the kingdom and your righteousness, dear God. And so we let it be, and we trust. We trust the goodness of God. This is Reverend Dr. Stephen J. Kosmina. I want to thank you for looking in today, wherever you are looking in, whether it be on social media, Facebook, YouTube, live, or later on in the week or month or the year. Thanks for looking in. I'm going to shut down the social media site now so we can have some fellowship with those who are looking in. So I want to thank you for being here. Unity Prosperity Ocean International. We are an approved alternative unity ministry operating under the 501c3 umbrella of Unity Worldwide Ministries. Thanks for being here. God bless you.